So Wolves play Burnley on Wednesday night, in which is probably the easiest game before obviously the horror show of fixtures going into December. And it feels like Wolves need this win. It's a home game against a pretty bad Burnley side. And, obviously if we lose to Man City and Liverpool, no one cares. Those games are free hits. So it feels like we need to kind of get some points on the board before those two games. And this Burnley game is the easiest game we could play right now. Obviously it's at home, which is a big plus, but Burnley are 18th in the league. And obviously they are just above Norwich, but they don't have that new manager bounce. And this isn't the same. I know Burnley always start pretty slowly, and we have an awful record against Burnley. Like last season, the two games we played against them were god awful, especially that 4-0. And then Fabio Silva scored a penalty in a 2-1, I think, at Turf Moor. But Burnley aren't good. Like, this is not a good Burnley side. They're not in particularly good form. James Tarkowski's suspended for this game, as is Ashley Westwood. Ashley Barnes is injured. And even their more reliable players are off form this season. Expected points has them a bit higher, like they should be on 12 points, but they've only won one game all season. I know Norwich had only won two and we were awful against them, but this is a game we should be beating Burnley. I'll go into some of Burnley's numbers in a minute, but they are awful. They're bottom of every metric, and this is the 11 I'd pick. Personally, look, we're going into some hard fixtures and we have to rotate a bit. For me, Hwang was awful against Norwich. I feel like he's starting to get criticised now for the first time in his Wolves career. And I don't think it's his fault necessarily. I think he's just being overplayed. So I'd bring in Adama. I want to see him on the left. I don't know why Bruno Lage is just it's probably because of Hwang's form, but I don't know why he's not really playing Adama on the left. It's where his best performances have been, even under the back end of Nuno. So why not play him on the left? Ruben Neves is suspended, I've just realised, isn't he? So that should be Moutinho. But Moutinho will come in and then Dendoncker should come in. Dendoncker has to come in for this game. Even if Neves wasn't suspended, you'd still have to bring in Dendoncker just for height and rotation. But we hardly have any midfielders anyway. So we might as well rotate. And then I'll still keep Trincao just because I want to rest Hwang. Trincao does concern me a bit against Burnley just because of how physical they are, but Burnley don't press. So but this feels like a type of game where Trincao can take a million touches before he does something that won't really affect him. And then I would bring in Marçal, which I know will annoy people, but Reinae Nui has picked a few injuries before. I'd rather have Reinae Nui in the Man City game and the Liverpool game personally. I wouldn't trust Marçal in those games. I just think Reinae Nui is more well-rounded, so I'd bring in Marçal in this game. We need to rotate. We've got a backup left back. You might as well rotate. And I don't think the drop-off's as big as Semedo to Keanu Hervey. Although I wouldn't mind if Keanu Hervey come in, and then obviously Willy Bolly's injured, so I would have brought him in for this game, but you can't. Now in terms of Burnley's numbers, they've got the worst rate. Sorry, for goals against, are 20th. So this isn't some great Burnley defence like they've always been. They're actually attacking a bit better. They're 14th for goals. Obviously Maxwell Cornet's come in and got 5 goals this season. He's their top goal scorer. That's helped them. But Wolves should win this game. Burnley's away record, they've only got 3 points. They haven't won a game away from home. Obviously they're 18th in the Premier League. I know our home records are not actually that great. When you look at the Premier League table for home records, we're actually 12th. Whereas when you look at away records, we're 5th. Which surprised me actually, especially when you see some of the articles being wrote by Wolves journalists. But Burnley aren't good. They've got no points, or not many points. Their away records pretty bad, and they're conceding a lot of goals. So we should win this game, and there's a lot of reasons why they're conceding a lot of goals. Nick Pope's a goalkeeper I rate pretty highly, but since he got that injury, he's not really been the same goalkeeper. If you look at post-shot XG in the Premier League, obviously our boy Jose Sarr's second in the league right now. He's plus 3.1, which is so good, by the way. He saved us 3 goals this season based on post-shot XG. Whereas Nick Pope's the opposite. He's cost Burnley 3.5 goals based on this metric. And look, obviously he's still good at commanding his box. His cross percentage is still pretty high. Obviously he's not good on the ball, but Nick Pope's having a bad year and they're conceding a lot of goals. So Pep and Nick Pope. In terms of shots, Burnley are low. They're 3rd lowest in the Premier League. Although we're actually 4th lowest, which surprised me because at the start of the Premier League we were up here for that metric. We're slowly going down. Shots on target, again, Burnley are pretty low. Shots on target percentage are actually a bit higher, to be fair. So when Burnley do have shots, they are shots that do get on target, but they're not a big shot side. Although neither are Norwich, to be fair, and they had a lot of shots against us, but Burnley aren't necessarily a potent threat. When you look at key passes and progressive passes, again, they're pretty low. It's not like the passes they are doing are really interesting passes. Kind of like Southampton, for example, have kind of low passing, but their numbers are pretty good. That's not Burnley. If you look at the height of their passes, this is just a typical Burnley side. If you look at the amount of passes they do on the ground, they're bottom in the league. Whereas if you look at the high passes, they're second. So this isn't some different Burnley side in terms of the way they play. They'll still put long balls. And it does scare me a little bit. Obviously, everyone knows Chris Wood versus Connor Cody. It kind of feels like a sequel that keeps happening, that we keep losing, to be fair. But you'd like to think we can handle it better now under a new manager, hopefully. In terms of tackles versus dribbles, Burnley are third in the league. And obviously, Wolves have a lot of dribblers. That's something we all know. So it's something that Burnley struggle to deal with. They're down there with some of the big clubs who obviously have to face dribblers left, right? So it's something they do struggle against, mainly because they're just slow and they're a really old squad. I don't know how Sean Dyche has kept that squad up for so long. But again, Wolves have a lot of dribblers and Burnley can't handle it. So again, it's probably another argument why to play Trincao and Hwang, because they're, out of all our four wingers, they're the two guys that have got the most dribbles this season. In terms of pressures, again, Burnley bottom of the league. They're down there with some of the big clubs who don't need to press as much because they've got high possession. But Burnley don't have high possession. They just don't press because they don't want to. Again, successful pressures bottom of the Premier League. They're not a good pressing side, which again for us should help us. And it's a reason why you might as well bring Trincao and Marcel in, because this is the sort of game where their issues will be less exposed by the opposition, in my opinion. Obviously, Burnley are always going to be good in the air. That's one kind of nervy thing, which is probably why you'd bring Dendoncker in. You'd bring in Bolly if he was fit. But yeah, Burnley third in the league for aerial duels one. Although we're not bad, we're pretty much mid-table for that metric, so it shouldn't be too much of a concern. And then for possession, obviously, again, Burnley second lowest in the league. So when you go for all these metrics, Burnley in terms of just points aren't good. They're not doing well in the league right now. They're conceding loads of goals. Their away record's awful, and this game's at Molineux. Their goalkeeper's one of the worst in the league. They're not having shots. They're not having particularly good, progressive passes. All their passes are long balls. They can't tackle dribblers. They don't press. They're okay in the air, or pretty good in the air, and they have no possession. So to me, all these metrics just say Burnley are bad. We are better than them in basically every metric bar aerial wins. We've got more points than them. It's at home. I know our home record's not great, but we should be winning this game. Every single metric says we should be winning this game. And regardless of what 11 Bruno Lage picks or what a Wolves fan wants, we should be winning this game. Look, maybe we won't. Maybe Connor Cody will get bullied by Chris Wood for the millionth time, but every metric says we should win this game. And I think we will. I think we'll bounce back from that Norwich result. I think we'll win 1 or 2-0 personally. I don't think it'll be a fun game to watch, but I think we'll win it. But if you enjoyed the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel. There'll be loads of videos over December with the amount of fixtures there are. So yeah, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and peace.